So a lot of really great times start with really crazy ideas. My very good friends, Ben, Charlie Safari Wilson, and John Ficara, came up with this great idea last year to go throw cars off a cliff in Alaska. There's a little town up there called Glacier View, Alaska, and I use the word town loosely. It's literally just some houses. There's not even a store there. But they are so far north that on the 4th of July, the sun doesn't set there. So naturally, fireworks are not going to be really exciting to watch. So about 10 years or so ago, they decided to start getting cars out of their junkyards, getting them barely running, paint them all red, white, and blue. Then the whole town and everybody else around just sits in folding chairs at the bottom of a 40-story cliff, and they brick the accelerator and tie off the steering wheel and just launch them off a cliff and destroys them at the bottom. Crowd goes wild. Sounds like a lot of fun. Well, that seemed cool, but how can we make it crazier? So the idea got cooked up to get junkyard cars down in the lower 48 and then drive them all the way to Alaska. Now, Ben has told a great version of this story about getting there and the journey and all that, but I wanted to add some of the really cool experiences we had along the way. To start with, these are cars destined to be hurled off a cliff, so they were not exactly mechanically fine specimens of all automobiles. So needless to say, there were a lot of breakdowns. We all met in Reno, Nevada, got the cars together, took out on the road. The very first day, the Jaguar broke down multiple times. We had hotel stops and things like that planned each night, rooms reserved, and it became evident very quickly we were not going to make any of those. I developed a tactic of calling the hotel each night when we realized we weren't going to make it 4 hours before we were supposed to get there and well outside of our 24-hour cancellation time. And I would just tell them something compelling. The story that seemed to work the best most days was to tell them that we were a gospel band and that our bus had broken down and we were trying to make it, but if they would just change our reservation a few days into the future, we would then make that one, which then of course just opens up that 24-hour cancellation window that we can cancel the next day and to kind of keep the thing rolling. Well, we make it to the Canadian line, and at this point, the idea of teams has sort of been abandoned. We're all running together, we're all having a good time. It's just whoever's awake or whoever wants to stretch their legs. So I think when we got to the border, I was in the police car Charger with my friend David Lockhart. A few other guys are in the F-150, and then John's team's in the Jaguar. So we get to the border, and this is a motley caravan of ridiculously liveried cars. We have a 70s Jaguar with Union Jack livery painted all over it with 3 guys in it wearing tricorn hats. We've got a beat up F-150 that is literally held together with duct tape and bed liner that is covered in Evel Knievel Stars and Stripes livery with big spam stickers on it because oddly enough they decided to sponsor and contribute to this event. Then the police Charger is covered in Buford T. Justice Smoking the Bandit livery. It's got a big picture of Buford on the hood. It's still got a lot of police car features on it, including a handcuff key on the keychain and its old Texas law enforcement plate on the front, but with a Florida license plate on the back. And foreign countries don't like you driving into their country with multiple license plates on the car. So needless to say, David and I got pulled off to talk to the nice people at the Canadian border. But where it all went wrong was the Jaguar snagged its exhaust manifold on the speed bump getting into Canada and just snapped it off. So in addition to suddenly being very loud, we run a risk of that engine running lean, burning a piston out, so we got to get this fixed. We're already on a pretty tight schedule to make it another 5,000 miles up to, or how many thousand miles it is, up to Glacier View. We get on the radio, hey, we're getting called for questioning. You guys go ahead. There was a Greek restaurant was going to host us, have lunch, had a car show for us, all this really nice stuff. You guys go ahead. Jaguar comes back, hey, we're broken. We're on the side of the road. The truck's like, okay, we're still running. We're like, all right, truck, you go ahead. Truck team, get there and just get them to hold the phones for us. We made it to the event. The Jaguar's hanging by a thread. And out of nowhere, this really great guy named Lewis Thal. Lewis pops up and he says, you know what, I got you guys. Come to my house. I've got a friend right now who is going an hour away to get an exhaust manifold that will fit that car. And, you guys have been up for a couple of days. Come to my house. All my neighbors, all my car guys, we're going to fix your car. You guys go inside, take a nap. So amazingly, yeah, we go to Lewis's house and he's just this awesome, great guy. He's like, we got couches, we got beds, everybody goes sleep. All his posse shows up with their tools and they just jumped on this Jaguar like a NASCAR pit crew team. We all took a nap. They get the car running. Lewis was just such a great guy, just eager to jump in, eager to help. His wife was in the hospital at the time. We all went to visit her. Grady is in his Evel Knievel livery. Matt is his Captain Chaos. The rest of us are just in our cannonball jackets and cowboy hats and whatnot. So we just had a great experience there. And Lewis was just one of those wonderful people that just didn't know any of us from anything and was just like, come on, I'll take care of you. That experience just was great. It got us going again. So we head up through British Columbia, and of course, we're meeting all kind of neat people all the way. We stopped for gas in this one town, and there was these kind of drifter kids, and they wanted to know about the cars. And they were just amazed that we were going to throw these things off a cliff. But of course, the cars are garbage. And one of the guys says, "Well, can I kick it?" And we're like, "What?" He's like, "Can I kick your car?" And we're like, "Okay, sure." So he just immediately sets to just like kicking the police charger, just kicking the doors. And of course, they had the ballistic panels in the doors, so it didn't really give a whole lot. But anyway, he gives a bunch of kicks. He runs, does this sort of like flying elbow drop onto the hood, almost lands on Cayman's camera rig. And he climbs off the car and he kind of shakes it off, and he just kind of nods his head and says, "I always wanted to kick a nice car." And he just goes and wanders off down the road. So just this funny experiences. We get further up the road. We make it to this town that's like the chainsaw carving capital of the world. We meet some really neat shopkeeper people that give us some snacks. We just keep having all these really cool experiences. Needless to say, these cars are leaking every kind of fluid they can. We're just duct taping them and topping them off where we can, zip ties, finding parts on the side of the road, whatever we can do to keep these things going. We gotten in contact with this really great guy. He was a VINwiki fan, guy named Logan Gray. And Logan sets Bonneville speed records. So he and I talk back and forth. He's got some motorcycle records. He's a really cool guy. He volunteered to come out and be our pit crew, basically, as we went through Canada. But due to our schedule with the cars breaking down so much, we had kind of a hard time coordinating with him. And this guy, God bless him, packed up his family, drove a day and a half, and just sat on the side of a highway waiting for the 3 cars to come through. And sure enough, there he was on the side of the road. We just pulled off in this little scenic thing, and he had tubs of fluids. He topped off every car. He had tools. He gave us everything we needed. He makes his own whiskey, by the way, and gave everybody a ceremonial bottle of whiskey to take home with us. It was like a pit crew. We were already running behind at that point. We probably didn't stay there 10 minutes. But just what an incredible guy to just go that far to do so much in such a short amount of time. So we, got all the cars topped off, brake fluid, oil, transmission fluid. He checked a few things, dropped some of his mechanical knowledge on us. We took a couple of pictures, high-fived, and we were back on the road. And just another one of those just really amazing people that just, VINwiki fans have just popped up everywhere, just help us get along, and it's just making this trip even possible. Another neat experience we had was getting on up the road. Ben had talked a little bit about this, about some of our fuel situations, because it would often be, 300 miles from one gas station to the next gas station, and then you get to that gas station and it is closed for inexplicable reasons, and you've got just enough gas in the back in gas cans to get you another 200 miles to the next gas station, which if it was closed, you were stuck. And that was exactly what had happened to us here. We had burned through the reserve fuel. We got to some little town, and I can't remember the name of it now, but we get to some little town, and there's a gas station. The gas station is closed, and no reason. So we're looking at, they've got like the tanks up there, like above ground usually, and we're looking at the tanks, and we're literally trying to figure out, like, is there a way we can like detach a hose, get the gas we need, and then just like put the money in an envelope and slide it under the door or something with a note of apology. But about that time, this minivan pulls up. And again, it's later in the evening. We're so far north, the sun stays up till, midnight or 1 in the morning. Minivan pulls up, and it's this really nice Native American lady named Bluebell. And she obviously can tell we're looking for fuel. She goes, you boys looking for gas? We said, yes, ma'am. And, do you know who owns this gas station? Now, we're in a town of probably 100 people. There's a motel with a little bar underneath, and this gas station, a general store, and a few houses, and that's about it. She goes, no, that's our mayor. He's 100 miles away judging a fishing tournament. But if you guys need some gas, let me do a lap around town, see what I can do. And we're like, wow, thanks a lot, because we were just out. Well, Bluebell wasn't gone 5 minutes. Another car pulled up, some other nice people. Hey, you guys need some gas? Well, we were going to ride our dirt bikes. We've got some gas left over. You guys can have that. A few minutes later, these big welding trucks, these guys, pipeline welders we talked to a couple hundred miles back, come through. They see the situation like, hey, you know what? We got some gas for our generators, run the welders on. We'll give you some of that. By that time, Bluebell shows up. She's got gas cans in the back. There's people coming. They've been sloshing gas out of four-wheelers and snowmobiles and just literally the whole town. Just it's kind of like the scene at the end of It's a Wonderful Life when everybody starts like giving money into the basket, but it was just gasoline and all these complete strangers that had never even seen us before, never even heard of us, but just we were travelers, needed some help, and they thought it was cool that we were going to go throw some junk cars off a cliff. So they literally came up with enough gas in the town to fill us up and get us to the next place up the road. Like, it was just these really magic experiences that you can't script these sort of things. The only way they happen is just to get out there. And we had one more really neat experience. We're in Canada in Yukon territory. We get to the border to get back into Alaska. So we stop at the Canadian Welcome Center. Everybody's digging out their passports, all that kind of stuff. I've already got mine in my pocket, but I look over at the visitor center and there is a 1963 Buick LeSabre, just like the one I had that's been in a few of my stories. There's a 1963 Buick LeSabre just sitting over there. It's a four-door, a little different from mine. Mine was a two, but needless to say, I just go over and I'm just oohing and on over this thing. And this old guy walks out and he's like, you know what that car is? I said, oh, yes, sir. I used to have one of these. I had the 425 engine in it, blah, blah, blah. And, I hadn't seen one in years. I kind of stuck my head in the window and it smelled just like my old car smells. I said, I'm so excited. And he just reaches in his pocket and tosses me the keys. He goes, take it up the road a spin. This guy never seen me in his life. Tossed me the keys. So sure enough, I hopped in that car and I took off. And the first time in 30 years, I got to drive a 63 LeSabre again. And it sounded just like my car and smelled just like my car. Had the same dash, same color. It was just such a rush of nostalgia. It made me so happy. So I didn't go long. We need to get on the road. So I make a loop, come back, and the guy walks out and he's like, my name's Sid, and I'm so glad you got to drive my car. I've had this thing for years. I got a whole car collection. And I was like, really? And of course, all a bunch of car guys, everybody's ear perks up in a car collection. He's like, yeah, I just live around the corner. Why don't y'all come over? We got time for this? Sure. So we all pile in the cars and I drive the Buick and Sid hops in the seat and we go up the street to his house. Sid has this fantastic car collection, old Buicks, a bunch of old Model Ts, just Model As, all these old cars parked around. And even cooler than that, Sid in his backyard had constructed his own little like frontier town, like an old mining town type of thing. And he had made a little general store and a little barber shop and like a trapper supply store, even a brothel. He had a doctor's office and a dentist and a barber shop. And it was all just built in this sort of little compound in his backyard. It was just full of all this memorabilia and things. Canada, at least the west coast of Canada, is very dry, so nothing really rusts there. And he'd just been collecting all this memorabilia for years. And he's showing us around and old snowmobiles and propellers off of airplanes and just a neat guy and just welcomed us into his home. And, we just had a great time with him and piled back in the cars and hit the road and made it on to Alaska. These three cars that we had lent for, I think it worked out to be like 7,500 miles almost to get them there. Little did we know all three of these cars were going to go out in such a spectacular way. That Charger had way more engine, I think, than any car that had ever gone off that cliff. So, when that thing launched, we had cut the exhaust off right at the headers. You could hear that V8 scream in that car, and it came off. It had so much torque coming off that ramp that it actually almost did like a backflip. The engine just screams, it lands, it overshoots the landing zone, just lands out in the woods, just on its rear end, and just obliterates itself. But you could just hear that Hemi engine, that thing just screaming to the last second. The truck did the most glorious arc you ever saw. We tried to make the Jag and the truck actually hit in midair, and that didn't happen. But the truck did this fantastic, just flying parabolic arc, and it was such a decrepit truck. It was just held together with the bed liner, and when it landed, it just came apart like the Challenger. It just scattered itself across the hillside. But the one that went out the coolest was that Jaguar. Now, that Jaguar had a Chevy 350 V8. And it had had so many fuel pump issues and so many problems. We finally just ended up taking like a small gas can and just hooking it to the engine just enough to run it to get it off the cliff. And when that car launched and its rusty frame and its rusty body, when it landed about halfway down the cliff, it literally just broke apart the firewall. Broke in half, and that 350 with its own fuel cell still attached literally just ripped itself out of the car. And it's almost like that scene in Indiana Jones where they take the guy's heart out and show it to him. That engine is just, the moment it came off the cliff, the resistance of the wheels went away It just shot to red line. It was just screaming, flames coming out of the exhaust manifolds. It rips out of the engine. It's just flying through the air, just shooting flames, valve floating, engine screaming. It was the most just wanton display of automotive destruction you've ever seen. The crowd's going wild. Everybody's screaming. We're screaming. And it's just the heart of this car ripped apart like an animal and just flew through the sky in the most glorious destruction you've ever seen. And, we are all jumping up and clapping and crying and yelling. And it was just the most amazing climactic end to such an incredible adventure that we shared with so many incredible people, not just the ones on the run, but the ones who helped us get there.
You asked for it, and Auto Tempest now has an app. So head over to your app store now, download it to your phone, and leave them a great review. So now, whether you go to autotempest.com by clicking the link in the description below, or just open up your phone app, you'll be getting access to all the results from all the major listing sites in one place. That is why we love Auto Tempest so much. We appreciate their support of VINwiki over the years, of Car Trek, but most of all because it is exactly where I go every day to find my next car.